guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Maddie. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Today I am doing my horror bingo TBR. So if you haven't heard of horror bingo yet, my friend Sarah at Wicked Reading came up with this bingo board surrounding different like horror prompts, or I guess like prompts you would read horror books for, and you complete the bingo board throughout the year. So I love a reading challenge that isn't like a week or even a month, because then the pressure's off and it's fun and you don't have the stress of like having to complete something. So most of the prompts are pretty easy to find a book for, and then some, at least for me, were genres, or like not really genres but like topics I guess, that I would not typically read from. So it's a good mix. It's a good mix of like stuff that I would normally read in a year and jumping out of my comfort zone. So before I go through all of the prompts, if you have not watched Sarah's video yet, please check it out. I will link it in the description. She also has done her own TBR and a huge recommendations video related to the prompts. I think there's like over 100 recommendations. So definitely check those out. I will have it all down below. Also, there is an easy mode and a hard mode to this. And because I'm trying to cultivate relaxed, easygoing, chill vibes these last couple of months, which if you know me at all, relaxed and easygoing are not words that I would use to describe myself, but we're working on that. I'm going the easy route. However, a lot of the books that I ended up picking could also fit for the hard prompts. I just won't have a lot of context around the hard prompts on this video because I wasn't really focused on that. So if you're more interested in the hard prompts, I know Sarah is doing all of her board on the hard mode, so she'll obviously talk about that in her video. So I'm just going to go through the whole board from the top left, I guess it would be, across, and then just go through the rows. There's a couple of prompts that I don't have a book picked out for. One, because you need to wait, I think. It'll make sense when I talk about the prompt. And then another because I just want to keep it open for reasons. I will talk about that when I get to those prompts. So I have my little notepad and a little behind the scenes lore, little as told by Maddie lore. I like hardly ever prepare for videos. Could you not tell? Could you really not tell? Yeah, I usually just like riff off the cuff, which is why it feels like you guys are actually my friends, because I'm just talking to you as if I would talk to my friends. But I did prepare for this one because I need to know what books I'm talking about. I mean, some TBR games I prepare for, obviously, but this one, I definitely did my research. Not on the actual book, so enough for them to fit the prompt. I have my Goodreads on my tablet, and I will be reading my version of the synopsis. So there's a lot of books to get through. So we're gonna go through this at a reasonable pace. I'm not gonna rush, but it could be a long video. So I guess grab a snack. Anyways, let's get started. The first prompt in the first corner is published in 2024, and that could fit so many books, obviously. There are a lot of horror releases that I have already read for 2024, and because this started October 1st, which was a few days ago, I can't count them. I mean, I'm sure I could, but I'm not going to. So I had to find a horror release that has come out or is coming out this year that I haven't read yet, and there was a few, but I used them for other prompts. So this one didn't really fit into prompts, and I'm really stoked to read this one. Is this a horror? I would classify it as a horror. It's An Academy for Liars by Alexis Henderson. So this is Alexis Henderson's new release, obviously, because it's been released in 2024. Came out mid-September. I have not read it yet, but it is very high on my TBR because I have been dying to read this. I read one single book by Alexis Henderson 2 years ago, I believe, or maybe it was last year. And it was House of Horror? No. House of Hunger. House of Horror, is that something? I feel like that's like a movie or something. I don't know. House of Hunger, I loved it. I was very surprised. It wasn't a 5-star read, but I think like a 4-star. I really liked it, and I really like her writing style. And I have the one about witches, which I don't remember what it's called, but I have that on my physical TBR. But this one is like a dark academia, and I'm so here for that. I don't read a lot of it, but I feel like I pick it up when I feel it calling to me. Like In My Dreams of Hold a Knife is also like kind of dark academia, and one of my faves. Also, The Maidens by Alex Michaelides is also kind of dark academia, and I loved it. But there's also some dark academia, like, is Ninth House? I haven't read it, but I feel like there's ones that don't really call to me and I know aren't for me, but this one definitely calls to me. So this one kind of a little bit reminds me of Vita Nostra in the sense that this main character gets a call to write an exam for this like prestigious school, which is kind of similar to Vita Nostra, the beginning at least, but it's also a magical school, which I don't read a lot about, but I'm really here for it. I haven't read a lot of the synopsis. I'm not going to read it now because I kind of want to go in blind, but from the little tidbits that I have been consuming, I'm very excited for this one. So that's going to be the first book that I read for this TBR. The second one is The End Times Are Here, and that's a apocalyptic story, and there were a few that I thought of, but I already read most of them. The new one by CJ Lead would be a great one for this. I personally didn't enjoy it, but only because of the religious tones. Like, I'm not really into that, but if you are, you'll probably really like it because it was a good story. That would fit really well. We Need to Do Something. It's usually up there. It's not up there. We Need to Do Something is also a really good one by Max Booth III, who I freaking love as an author. But what I ended up picking was Moon of the Crusted Snow because it's been on my TBR for freaking ever and I need a reason to pick it up. I know nothing. I know nothing about this book. Why do I want to read it? Vibes. I don't know. I know it's more literary, which is kind of my jam. I don't know how horror-y it is, but we're going to find out. I also don't know much about it. I don't want to talk about it because the ones that I don't know the plot for, I don't want to know the plot for, if that makes sense. So the next one is This Is Halloween. And that prompt is that it takes place on or around Halloween, obviously. And this one I picked Kill Creek by Scott Thomas. This is the only reread on this list. I only picked one because I really do want to reread Kill Creek. I read it a few years ago and I remember really liking it, but I remember it just not hitting at that time. And I think if I reread it, I'm going to enjoy it even more. And it does happen on Halloween. This one is about a bunch of horror authors being like collected to spend, collected sounds wrong. They are not being like kidnapped or anything. They're invited is a better word to use. They are invited to spend the night at a haunted house. So a bunch of horror authors go for Halloween to a haunted house and stuff happens. And it's really good. I enjoyed it and I want to reread it. I remember parts of this one actually scaring the crap out of me. And I remember not being able to read it in the dark anymore, like at nighttime. So hoping to cultivate those vibes again. The next one is Blood on the Cover. And for this one, I'm going to do Rest Stop by Nat Cassidy, which is a novella that is coming out later this year. Also, side note, Nat Cassidy is coming out with a new release in 2025, which I'm super excited for. When the Wolf Comes Home. Something about a wolf and coming home. I don't know. Anyways, Rest Stop, no idea what it's about. It's a novella. So like with novellas, I find the synopsises tell you too much and then you get disappointed because you already know what happens based on the synopsis. So that's my plan for that one. Please don't tell me what it's about. The last one in that row is Wood/Wilderness. And for that one, that just needs to be the main setting. And for this one, I'm going to pick The Ritual by Adam Neville. I believe this is also a movie. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I also have not seen the movie. So this one I'm going in blind. I think this one also could fit for a future prompt that's coming up about the occult. This one I believe is about a group of 4 men. I think they've known each other from the past and they get back together to go on a hiking trip and they're not alone in the woods. And I'm really excited for the atmospheric horror of this one. I think this is going to be another scary one that I'm not going to be able to read at nighttime because it's definitely giving the same vibes of like the Blair Witch Project, just based on the cover and being in the woods and like something creepy in there. So yeah, excited about that one. So let's move on to the second row. The first one in the second row is called Honoring the Classics. And for this one, I'm going to pick The Omen by Rebecca Yarros. because I want to continue on with the like big horror classics. And I've already covered The Shining and I've already covered The Exorcist. And so I think it's only fair to continue and do The Omen. I was thinking about Rosemary's Baby, okay? That one did pop up, but I'm more pulled to The Omen than Rosemary's Baby. I will read Rosemary's Baby at some point, maybe next year, but for now I'm gonna pick The Omen. I also have not seen the movie, so I know nothing, literally nothing. Which at this point, like, take a shot for every time I say I know nothing, because I feel like that's just my brand. Now that I'm reading the synopsis about The Omen, I'm kind of regretting this choice. Like, the reason, anybody who knows what The Omen's about is gonna start laughing at me the second I explain this. The reason I didn't really want to read Rosemary's Baby was because I was like, well, there's baby in the title. And I don't really like reading about creepy children. So I'm like, I'm not going to read that one. I'm going to go for The Omen. Guess what the friggin' Omen's about? Also, it's 2024 and I just learned what The Omen's about. Okay? I'm just a girl. Okay? But it's about this husband and wife whose child is probably the devil. But yeah, I was trying to avoid creepy children. I just like walked headfirst into creepy children. Now I'm feeling like Rosemary's Baby is probably less creepy children than The Omen, but we've already committed. So we'll find out how I like this. Anyways, moving on. The next prompt is translated work. And I was actually upset that I finished this book before October 1st and before I filmed this TBR, because I just finished Our Share of Night, which is a translated work. It was okay. It's definitely a very well written book and you spend a lot of time with the characters. I just didn't care. But I would have definitely counted that one for it, especially for how much of a commitment it was. I read that on my own, like, interest. I didn't read that for a video or a vlog or anything. So it would have been nice to count it for something, considering I wasn't, like, super in love with it. But anyways, I'm rambling. I am going to choose a book by Samantha Schweblin because I have read Fever Dream, which is a translated work. Highly recommend if you have not. Very short, and I had a good time with it. But I own her book Little Eyes, which I haven't read, obviously. And I bought it because I already know I like that author. And the cover is very creepy. And I liked all the little eyes. So I'm happy that I'm picking... Is this the first book that I own? No. Okay, the only other book that I own from this list so far is Kill Creek. So I'm hoping that I picked more books from my physical TBR because I have been trying to read more of those. But let me tell you quickly about Little Eyes. It says a visionary novel about the collision of technology and play, horror and humanity. And based on the synopsis, it seems very like Big Brother is watching. There's these little stuffed animals that have cameras in their eyes and they're like worldwide and they're all connected to a anonymous global server. And it just says that these creatures can reveal the beauty of connection, but they also expose the ugly humanity of our increasingly linked world. So I don't know, very interesting, very like dystopian and a little bit of tech horror. I don't know how I feel about the stuffed animals though, because I hate any sort of horror that has to do with an inanimate object becoming animated, like puppets. Chucky, absolutely not. I've already talked on this channel at length on how I don't like Chucky. I just don't like them. So I'm hoping that these sort of stuffed animals are more of like a tool rather than the horror itself. But that's kind of what it sounds like. It sounds like it's like a plot device rather than a whole thing. Anyways, that is my pick for translated work. The next one is another one I know nothing about. Nothing. It is a cover read, and that's what the prompt is a cover pick. And this one I picked Full Immersion by Gemma Amor. I own this one. The lovely Ashling gave this to me for my birthday. Thank you. And I really want to read it. It is totally a cover read. The cover is freaking gorgeous. I love it. Even if I hate it, it's like supplication where if I hate it, I'm still going to keep it because I love the cover and it is a piece of art. So other than the cover, I have read from Gemma Amor before. It is the one where the girl has a friend get kidnapped when they're children. What is that called? The cover is like a hand with teeth on it. Let me look it up for you. Dear Laura, that is what it is called. Highly recommend. It is a little novella, but damn, it packs a punch. I freaking loved it. So I'm hoping that this one will also be a hit for me. So that's a pick for that prompt. The next prompt is Reaper Read, and this one is about themes of death and grief. And this one was actually tough for me to think about, like find something for, because I read a ton of grief horror. It's one of my favorite subgenres in horror, like ever. I love a grief horror, and I feel like I have read like all of them. Like truly, I feel like I've scoped out and read all of them, except for the most iconic one. So that's one I picked. But before I tell you what it is, let me know in the comments your favorite like grief horror, any grief horror recs you have, because I am always interested in reading more, and I feel like I'm running out of like grief horror books to read. So for this one, I picked Pet Sematary by Stephen King, because I am trying to work from Stephen King's like most iconic work and then like slowly go down. We're not going to talk about The Long Walk, okay? That one didn't happen. We're just going to pretend not that one. But I've already covered The Shining, and I've already covered Misery. So I think it's only right that I cover Pet Sematary for grief. We all know what it's about. So that's the book that I'm reading for Reaper Read. The next prompt is a title that has a spooky word in it. And this one I picked another 2024 horror release, and I own it physically. So I'm also checking off reading from my physical TBR. And I don't know if I've said it yet, but it's Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. And this one I'm scared. I'm scared about this one because I love Paul Tremblay so much. There are misses for me. Like, I do love his writing, but I don't think every single one of his books is a banger for me. But he wrote one of my favorite books of all time, A Head Full of Ghosts. And so I'm excited for this one. The reason I'm reluctant is because I have heard very mixed things. I haven't really heard overly positive things. I've either heard like it was fine or people hated it. So I'm feeling very reluctant. I also am not really into this whole like horror movie, horror VHS recreating the horror movie thing that's going on right now. I hated Silver Nitrate, and I just like don't have any interest in reading more about that. So that's also why I'm reluctant, but I have to read it because it's Paul Tremblay and I have to read all of his books. So I'm still going to try it, but I'm very reluctant for those reasons. So now we're moving on to the third row, and the first prompt in that one is Dead Man Walking. And this one is either a reanimated corpse or like zombies. And this one I could have picked Pet Sematary for, I feel. But this one I actually ended up picking The Devil by Name by Keith Rawson. This is actually the sequel to Fever House, which I read last year and was such a surprising 5-star read for me. I got it as an ARC, and I just got it because of the cover. It was like a hand. And it was a really interesting premise. It was about like a severed hand essentially starting the apocalypse. And I don't know, it was very intriguing, but it was much more character driven than I thought, and I actually really liked that. The ending was a little odd, but I still really enjoyed it, so I want to continue it. So the sequel is following kind of like the events of the first one, so I won't talk about it too much, but I definitely recommend the first one for sure. I had a great time with it. It was such a surprising read for me. I haven't really heard a lot of people talking about it. I don't know if I'm the only one that really loved it. I haven't really heard anybody else, so I don't know. Maybe check it out. The next prompt is genre bending, and so it's like horror in another genre. And this one, I feel like there's so many different ways you could go. I just put a book I really wanted to read here that I thought would fit. So the genre bending is horror and like crime drama, I guess. And so that is House of Bone and Rain by Gabino Iglesias, which I am so excited for. I'm so excited for it. The Hold at the Library has come in a few times for me, and I just keep like delivering later because I want to make sure I'm in the right headspace for it, and I want to give it all of my attention because I loved his last book so much. It was such a surprise for me. So this one, I am like such high hopes, but oh man, all of the 2024 releases so far that I've been super pumped for have turned out to be complete flops. So I'm just hoping that this curse breaks for this book. But the cover also is gorgeous, like that neon green and purple. Oh, I love it. So I kind of also want to purchase this just because it is so beautiful. This one's also a little bit like grief horror, kind of. It's not, I would say the horror is not surrounding the grief, but the main character is suffering grief. Basically, it's a group of childhood friends, and one of the friends' mother was killed, and they're getting revenge on that. Gabino Iglesias reminds me of S.A. Cosby also. This is kind of like a side tangent, but I feel like they write very similar in terms of like topics and themes. So S.A. Cosby could be another great one for the genre bending if you want to do some like horror crime. So that's the one for genre bending. The next one is a 5-star read, and this is one I don't have a book for, obviously, because I'm just going to wait until I get a 5-star for this and then just fill it in. Also, there are no like free spaces in this bingo board, so that's something Sarah mentioned before, is like you can pick any prompt and just mark it as a free space. So I might just mark this one as a free space since I don't really have one for it, but we'll see if I have a 5-star that is a horror that is not already in another prompt. However, there are a lot of 2025 releases that are coming out early that could definitely be contenders for the 5-star read. Like I mentioned, Nat Cassidy's coming out with another one. Eric LaRocca's coming out with another one. Dare I say Grady Hendrix? Him and I have beef. I truly vowed that I was done with Grady Hendrix. I was not reading any more by him. And then I saw the title and cover of the book that's coming out next year. And it can either go very, very well or very, very poorly. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what ends up fitting in that prompt. But the next prompt is a BIPOC author. And for this one, I forgot that I put him on this list. I have Razor Braid Tears by S.A. Cosby. So I knew I would cover him in here somewhere. So that's what I picked. I'm pretty sure I had this on a TBR like months ago, and I just never got to it. I also own this physically, so that's great, reading off of my physical TBR. And I already think this one's probably going to be a 5-star read, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. The last prompt in the third row is a cryptid. Okay, I don't know, because I don't read this. It's like Mothman, Bigfoot, like the Loch Ness Monster, like those types of things. This is probably the prompt that I was like, this one's gonna be hard to read for, because I don't read creature features. I have no interest in them. I like my horror to be not like, how do I say this? Because I like supernatural paranormal horror. Like I love ghosts and haunted houses. But I like my horror based in reality. Like horror of humanity. I don't like the boogeyman. Does that make sense? I don't know. Anyways, this one was hard to pick from. So I just stole one of Sarah's racks because I'm like, there is no way that I'm going to be able to find something on my own here. So I picked Below by Laurel Hightower, and I believe this one's about Mothman. Am I excited or looking forward to reading this? Not particularly, but maybe I'll surprise myself. I do really like Laurel Hightower, so maybe she can turn me into a fan of these sorts of books, but we'll see. Now moving on to the fourth row. The first prompt is the title has a number in it. I don't know why this one was so hard for me to find. I was like going through all of my like TBR on Goodreads and like trying to find a horror book with a number in it that I wanted to read was like pulling teeth. So this one I picked 100% Match, which is a short story. It is disgusting. I'm pretty sure it's extreme horror. I've heard awful things about it. So I kind of want to read it for myself. The cover in itself is disgusting. I'm pretty sure this is about a creepy, disgusting man probably going on a dating app or something. It sounds like my worst nightmare. So let's read about it. All right. Okay. So the next prompt is Satanic Panic, and that is like about the occult. And that one is the one I was saying that you could do the ritual for. but I picked Evocation by S.T. Gibson because it's about like the occult. But I'm also dying to read more of S.T. Gibson because I freaking loved A Dowry of Blood. I'm so late to the party. I know I'm so late to the party, but I got there, fashionably late, and I get it. So I kind of want to read more. Have not heard great things about this one, but I don't care. I'm still gonna read it. Let me give you more about this one. Our main character is a psychic prodigy, and they were living under their oppressive father who was very into the occult. So at some point his father dies and he starts living this like double life where he's like this very high-powered attorney, but also a medium for his secret society. It's also LGBTQ plus, so I'm very into that also. And I loved the romance in A Dowry of Blood, if you would call it that. Not the abusive one, obviously, but I loved the way that the relationships between the characters were written. So I'm interested to read more, and hopefully more of that is in this one. So that's that. The next prompt is a book club pick, and this one I'm also leaving open because with book club picks, I typically just read the ones that are calling to me at the time. I follow a couple of book clubs, so whatever one I ended up reading from, I'll just put in that slot there. The next one is for pink horror, which is like girl / womanhood, which I never realized was pink horror. I didn't realize that that was like a genre, or I guess like a subgenre, until I heard about it on Sarah's channel. So that's cool. I'm really happy to know that that is like a title for it. Also very fitting. I love it. I love pink. The one I'm picking for this is First Light by Liz Curran. This is the second book in the Knight's Edge series. I don't know if it's just a duology or if she's continuing on, but I really liked the first one. Surprisingly, it was like a vampire-y story about a mother and daughter, and their relationship was very toxic. And I don't know, I just really enjoyed it. It had everything, and I'm really interested to see what continues with these characters. I'm like really invested in the main character. I feel like that doesn't happen often for me. It's very rare for me to be very attached or invested to a character. So I really want to continue this series. I thought it was a standalone, but seeing that there was a second book that came out, I really want to get to it. That came out this year as well. I don't own it, so I may have to go to the library for this, but I will definitely be picking this one up. The last prompt in the fourth row is multiple POV. And this one I feel like is hard to find for because you don't know if it's multiple POV until you read it. So I just like looked on Goodreads and looked for a horror book that is already on my TBR because I didn't know it was multiple POV. And this one is Fantastic Land by Mark Barkoven. But I don't know, my writing, I cannot read my own writing, so sorry about that. I'm excited about this one because it is mixed media, I believe. And Mary recommended it to me way back when she was reading it like forever ago. So I think I'm gonna like it. I usually don't like carnival settings. I've been done dirty a couple times. I did not like Hide by Kirsten White at all. Not at all. And I also didn't like At the End of Every Day. So hopefully this is the redemption I need. The last row, fifth row, this one was the hardest row for me, truthfully. The prompts in this one were kind of tough because they're not usually things that I read. So I really had to dig and use a lot of the recommendations. So the first one was As Seen on the Big Screen, and that's a book that has a film or show adaptation. Adaption. I'm just making up words. Is adaption a word? No. I don't know. Anyways, moving on. I picked Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. Did I buy the entire trilogy? Well, it's not a trilogy anymore, but at the time it was a trilogy. Did I buy them all without reading the first one? I did. And do I love the new released covers way more than the ones that I have? Should I have just bought the first one and read it to see if I liked it and then got the new covers that I enjoy? Yes. All of these things are true, but that's not my reality. So I'm going to read Annihilation. Okay. I will probably watch the movie after just because it's like horror sci-fi, which is kind of interesting. And I feel like this one could also fit for post-apocalyptic, which is a different prompt that we talked about before. Anyways, that's my plan for that. The next one is out of your comfort zone, which is a subgenre you don't usually read. Okay, and this one, there was a few ones calling to me, okay? Horror romance, not one I usually read. But I really don't think that I could have gotten myself to pick one up. Although, I guess it depends on what you consider a subgenre, because if you look at Evocation, it has romance in it. I don't know if it's like part of that genre. So I don't know. But anyways, I ended up going with, I actually have it right here. I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones. Okay, the reason for this is because I usually never read slashers. It's very rare that I pick up a slasher because I don't really like slashers. But I recently watched the entire Scream franchise for the first time. Yeah, I'm pausing to let your shock wear off. Because, yeah, how did I make it to 30 and not watch the Scream franchise? I don't know. I've been so living under a rock and I've been missing out so aggressively. So if you're interested in hearing my ranking of them, I will definitely answer you in the comments. But anyways, I recently finished that with Brooklyn and Rebecca and I loved it. I was obsessed. So now I'm willing to give slashers another chance. Also, me and Stephen Graham Jones, I love this author. I love this author so much. I just don't like slashers. So I'm at this like weird place. I've talked about this before. I want to love his books so much because I love his writing. I absolutely love his writing so freaking much, but I just can't with the stories. So I don't know. I'm trying this one out. Also, fun fact, this one's signed. I picked this one up when I was in Chicago, actually, and I saw that they had it signed, and that's what kind of prompted me to pick it up. So, I don't know. Anyways, that's what I picked. It might be cheating, because it's not really out of my comfort zone, slashers. It's just like a genre I don't really like, or a subgenre I don't really like, or a topic I don't really like, but whatever. I'm doing it, okay? Sue me. The next one is short story collection. I don't know. Me and short story collections, I've tried a bunch. The only ones that have worked for me are Eric LaRocca's. So I picked a short story collection by Eric LaRocca. It is the only one that I haven't read yet, I believe. This Skin Was Once Mine and Other Disturbances. I was going to read this when it first came out and I just never got around to it. So I'm going to read it now. And I love their short stories because they're so weird and creepy and gross and I just love this author. So that's what I picked. The next one is TBR Vet, which is a book that's been on your TBR for a long time. And this one is actually over there, near the Fury. I don't know, you can kind of see it. I have owned this book for a long time. I've been wanting to read it for a long time, and I just have never picked it up. I just have never had a reason to pick it up. And it's In the Miso Soup by Ryu Murakami. I might butcher this. I'm sorry. This is going off memory, and we all know how my memory is. It is about an American. Let me look it up. Okay. Yes, okay, I was right. It's about an American who, his name is Frank, and he hires Kenji to take him on a guided tour of Tokyo's nightlife. Kenji notices that Frank is a little sketchy, and he thinks that Frank may be like a little murdery. And anyways, that's the plot. That's all I'm gonna say. But I've been really wanting to read this for a really, really long time, and I just have never gotten around to it. So now is the time. The last prompt is one of the hardest. This prompt and the one like about Mothman were the two hardest for me to find for, because I was like, these are not books that I would typically read. So because I'm still trying to make a TBR that I'm really excited about and books that I really, really want to read over the course of the next year, although these like genres or I guess topics or themes, what would you call them? Plots? I don't know. Are not ones that I typically get excited for. I wanted to really, really find a book that I was like pumped for within those genres. And this one I think I may have cheated. But if you read this book, you can let me know in the comments if you think that I should pick a different book instead. So this one is Creepy Crawlies, okay, is the prompt. So like snakes, bugs, spiders, beetles, anything creepy and crawly. And for this one, I picked Cackle by Rachel Harrison. I feel like I'm cheating. You let me know in the comments if I'm cheating or not, people who have read Cackle. I read in some sort of blog post when I was looking for books on this topic that the main character or one of the characters like carries around spiders in their pocket. And I don't know how big a part of the story that is. Like, I don't know if that's like actually a part of the story or if that's just like a weird quirk thing that they do or if it's like part of the plot. I don't know. Let me know, because this is one where I'm like, okay, I'll change it. If I'm like cheating here, I'll change it. But because I haven't read the book, I don't know how big the spiders are in the like story. So if you think it's a stretch and like it's not that big part of the story, then let me know. And if you let me know, you'll have to recommend a creepy crawly book, because I looked and I don't know. There is a Nick Cutter book coming out that has like, I think it's called The Wasp maybe, and it has like a cover with like the girl's face with a wasp on her face. I think I could be intrigued to read that one, maybe. I don't know. Let me know. So those are all of the books that I'm planning to read in the next year for the horror bingo card. I highly recommend you take part in this. I feel like the prompts are really fun and have a wide range of tastes, so you can like really cover a lot of different books. And I feel like a lot of the books that you would typically read in a year would fall in a lot of these prompts, so it's not really that much of a stretch or extra work to do. So I definitely recommend checking out Sarah's intro video about it, because she has all the information, and she also goes into much more detail on the prompts and the hard versions, which I didn't mention. So I think that's everything. Let me know in the comments if you are also participating in the horror bingo board, and if you have read any of the books that are on my TBR. Are you also excited for any of these books as well? Maybe we can buddy read them. Let me know. Let me know in the comments. I would love to chat with you. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you being here today. If you like this video and you want to support my channel, feel free to give it a thumbs up. It definitely helps me out. And if you want to see more videos from me, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any. And if you want to add the little notification bell, because I'm such a sporadic uploader now, maybe you want to be notified. It's there if you want to do it. No pressure. Otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.